Recently, Greenpeace had covered Prime Minister Sunak's private home in a way that attracted media attention, as a protest against his energy policy. The British government has now stopped working with the organization in any way. The activists speak of a bunker mentality here. But let's go back. 4 days ago, Greenpeace activists covered Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's private house with black fabric in protest against British energy policy. And now the government wants to suspend talks with the environmental organization. Working with the group is no longer appropriate, a Sunak spokesman said. Of course, we are of the opinion that people who are accused of breaking the law should not sit at the table in discussions with the government, they say. It would not be unusual for the Ministry of the Environment to speak to Greenpeace, but given their actions and the arrests made last week, they clearly do not see fit to involve them. Last week, 4 Greenpeace activists partially covered Sunak's house in his Northern England constituency with black fabric in protest at new licenses for oil and gas exploration in the North Sea. They also hung a flag reading "No New Oil" on the roof of the listed building. Sunak and his family were on vacation at the time. With the action, Greenpeace wanted to protest against the government's decision to issue hundreds of new oil and gas licenses for production from the North Sea. The police temporarily arrested a total of 5 people. After the action, new demands arose for better protection of politicians' privacy. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, how they even could do that. Greenpeace stressed that they made sure that nobody was at home during the protest. The government accused the organization accused the government of having a bunker mentality here, as I said, and burying your head in the sand is not going to let the climate crisis pass. That was said by UK co-chief Will McCallum. The public would want bold action on climate change and will make their views known in the next general election, as Callum said. And they said they need to protest the way they are doing. Shutting off communications with Greenpeace won't help. Any member of government is invited to discuss environmental policies and the need for urgent action with Greenpeace, he said. Well, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, announced that oil and gas production in the North Sea is to be intensified. And he said that on the last day of July, at the end of the hottest month on record, and a few days after UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced the beginning of an era of global cooking. Sunak promised about 100 extraction licenses to extract fossil fuels, and it's the clearest indication so far that the green transformation of the economy is slipping further and further down the government's list of priorities. Although he says he wants to stick to the net zero target, Sunak said the UK should be climate neutral by 2050. But the country cannot completely break away from oil and gas. It would be better if they are not dependent on foreign dictators for our energy security. I made this video on his lies on the Russian ones. In addition, it's far more energy intensive to import fossil raw materials from abroad, he says, and the domestic production would therefore be better for the environment. And that it would be a positive story for the whole of Great Britain. That's Sunak's tone now. But his arguments hardly catch. Mike Childs of the environmental campaign Friends of the Earth pointed out that the new production licenses do little to strengthen Britain's energy security. Because the oil and gas extracted from the North Sea belongs to large corporations such as Shell, Total or BP, and they sell it on the international market to the highest bidders. In addition, it will take many years before oil and gas are produced at all. The licenses only give the companies the right to carry out tests in a certain area under the seabed. How much oil gas is there? Is it easy to extract, and is drilling worth it financially, I mean? And that takes up to 4 years, and then it takes several more years until the fossil fuels are extracted. And there's something else. More oil won't change the high energy prices that have been plaguing the British for over a year, because the price of raw materials in Great Britain is based on the European equivalent. From a purely energy policy point of view, promoting oil and gas production is problematic, not to mention the effects on the climate. Jamie Livingston of the Oxfam Scotland campaign said the government's decision contradicts climate science and common sense. And criticism also came from those close to Sunak politically. Chris Skidmore, an influential Tory MP, said, "This is the wrong decision at the wrong time when the rest of the world is experiencing record heat waves. It would also be wrong economically because the future does not belong to fossil fuels but to renewable energy." But Sunak is clearly determined to put the brakes on climate policy. How little importance he attaches to the topic is well known. It is a contrast to his predecessor Boris Johnson, who was much more committed publicly to progressive climate policy, even if, according to environmental campaigns, he lacked a detailed strategy. Prime Minister Sunak, on the other hand, was only able to bring himself to travel to Egypt for the COP27 climate summit last November after severe criticism. And meanwhile, the journey to climate neutrality is faltering. Last month, the Independent Committee on Climate Change issued damning report warning that the UK could miss all medium-term climate targets. The expansion of renewable energy sources, the installation of heat pumps, the switch from petrol to electric cars, and reforestation. Everything has to happen much faster. And Sunak's decisions are not simply the result of a lack of interest in the issue. There is a political strategy behind them. The Prime Minister hopes to keep Conservative voters in line with a softened climate policy. He can also build a clear dividing wall between the Tories and Labour here. The opposition has promised to phase out oil and gas production in the North Sea. And the by-election in the London suburb of Uxbridge the week before that obviously strengthened Sunak's conviction that a move away from stringent climate protection could definitely work, at least in terms of electoral tactics. The fact that the Tories were able to hold on to their seat in West London was mainly due to the opposition to the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone, or ULEZ. In this zone, cars that do not meet the latest emission standards must pay an additional fee. A local campaign against ULEZ in Uxbridge arguably cost Labour victory. And Sunak saw a political opportunity then. Environmental policy is apparently well suited to mobilize voters. And days after the Uxbridge win, the Prime Minister said he would implement the net zero target in a pragmatic and proportionate manner. With the granting of the production licenses in the North Sea, he confirms the reduced climate protection that is now the order of the day. But the shot could backfire, because experts point out that climate-friendly policies and the promotion of green energies meet with broad approval among voters. But it will be interesting to see if they can succeed with that. And if you're interested in more UK politics or Brexit, the next video is right here in the end screen. Also, have a quick look on the banner up there. I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.